him again. East Coast Pete for another mid-rock crisis. Today we're going to talk about James Taylor, American singer-songwriter and guitarist. He's a survivor, a bestseller, 5-time Grammy winner, and inductee to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the year 2000. Born in Massachusetts in 1948, his mom was an aspiring opera singer. His dad was a physician. James was the second of 5 children. Siblings were Alex, Kate, Livingston, and Hugh. 1951, the family moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. They built a house in a rural Morgan Creek. James attended public school in Chapel Hill. Summers were spent on Martha's Vineyard. And what could possibly go wrong? Well, James began music on a cello, but switched to guitar in 1960. Woody Guthrie was an influence. Taylor attended boarding school in Massachusetts, and in 1961 he met Danny Korchmar on Martha's Vineyard, an aspiring guitarist from Larchmont, New York. They jammed blues and folk. Taylor's singing was meticulous even then. He wrote his first song at age 14. The two played coffee houses on the island, billed as Jamie and Cooch. In junior year, he was attended back home in Chapel Hill. The pressure at the prep school had overwhelmed James. In North Carolina, he played in a band his brother Alex had formed called the Fabulous Corsairs. Taylor returned to Milton Prep in Massachusetts to finish his senior year, determined to do what was required. But this is when depression took hold, and he committed himself to McLean Hospital, and he was treated with Thorazine. Taylor received a rejection from selective service and avoided Vietnam. He finally got his high school diploma from the hospital's satellite school. He was grateful to the people at the hospital. His life had been saved, and he was a new man. His brother Livingston and sister Kate also became patients. The Taylor kids were perhaps oversensitive. Their upbringing had been so good, they were not prepared to grow up. The world was a much tougher place than they had thought, and depression may have been genetic. Korchmar urged Taylor to leave the hospital to move to New York City to form a band, and they recruited Joel O'Brien from Korchmar's band, the King Bees, Taylor's childhood friend Zach Wisner as well, and they called themselves the Flying Machine. They performed originals, but Taylor was full of self-doubt. They played the Night Owl Cafe in Greenwich Village and shared the stage with the Turtles and the band Lothar and the Hand People. In 1966, a single Night Owl charted to number 102. No record contract. The Flying Machine signed on to a 3-week gig in the Bahamas, but the club was failing and they were never paid. The band broke up. So when you're down and lonely and you need a helping hand, what do? You write a hit song. Nope. You shoot smack. Of course, he hung out at Washington Square Park in New York City playing guitar. When he ran out of funds, he called his father, who picked him up and drove him back to New York back to North Carolina, James rehabbed for 6 months. He tried again to be a musician, this time in London. Danny Korchmar was there also, and his King Bees had opened for Peter and Gordon. Korchmar introduced Taylor to Peter Asher, who was then the A&R head of Apple Records. Paul and George heard Taylor's demos and were very impressed. James Taylor concentrated on writing songs. He came up with Carolina in My Mind, recorded at Trident Studios at the same time. The Beatles were laboring on their White Album. McCartney and Harrison secretly guested on Carolina. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks. Probably not. Taylor was finally getting somewhere, so of course he starts using heroin again and meth. He was soon back at the hospital, wondering what happened. Apple released the album James Taylor at the end of '68. The critics liked it. Since Taylor couldn't tour, it didn't sell. Carolina, in My Mind, only reached number 118 in the United States. By the summer, James was ready to play again. He did 6 nights at the Troubadour in LA. He closed the Newport Folk Festival, singing in a rainstorm to thousands who braved the elements to hear him. He was back. All was well. Then he broke both his hands and feet in a motorcycle accident on Martha's Vineyard. He couldn't play, but he managed to compose while recuperating. He signed a contract with Warner in October of '69. He recovered and moved to California. Peter Asher was his manager and record producer. His second album, Sweet Baby James, helped by Carole King, was a success. The single Fire and Rain, about his drug rehab and also about his friend's suicide, went to number 3 in the US. The album was called a folk rock masterpiece. James Taylor was mainstream. Taylor, yeah, you say that like it's a good thing, right? Yes, East Coast people. Mainstream means money, and money means freedom, and freedom means several things to several people. Well, Taylor, he performed with Dennis Wilson in a Monty Hellman film, Two-Lane Blacktop. He shared a stage with Joni Mitchell, Phil Oakes, for a Greenpeace benefit. His fans were women. Guys didn't have much use for the new face of rock. In '72, Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin, The Who, and the Rolling Stones were what guys wanted. Let the chicks have him. I'm sorry if that sounded racist. Mudslide Slim and The New Horizon was, with the single You've Got a Friend, was written by Carole King with Joni Mitchell, went to number 1. Long Ago and Far Away went to number 4 on the adult contemporary chart. The album went to number 2 in 1972. It also saw Taylor's concept album, One Man Dog, recorded at a home studio with a guest spot for Linda Ronstadt, along with Carole King, Carly Simon, and John McLaughlin. Sales were disappointing, but Taylor and Carly Simon got married anyway. The couple would record and perform together. Hit singles were released. Children were born. What a life. Now, Taylor took time off to enjoy his family, but returned to the studio in 1974. His album Walking Man was released in June. Paul and Linda McCartney were guests, but the album was a critical and commercial disaster. It sold on 300,000 in the U.S., but what else did he have to prove? 300,000 albums is a commercial disaster. In '75, he put out his Gorilla album. The single was a cover of Marvin Gaye's How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You, with Carly on background vocals. And it went to number 5 in the US and number 1 in Canada. Second single, Mexico, went to number 5. In My Pocket in '76, Taylor's last Warner album, Art Garfunkel, David Crosby, Bonnie Raitt, and Stevie Wonder all sat in. The album went to number 16, achieved gold status, but Warner put out a greatest hits which sold 20 million at the same time, and that's a diamond certification. Diamond. Taylor signed with Columbia. The album JT was successful, went to number 4. The single Handyman was number 1 adult contemporary and number 4 in the US. Danny Kortchmar helped with Honey, Don't Leave LA, but it went to only number 16. Only. Taylor guested with Paul Simon on Art Garfunkel's recording of Sam Cooke's Wonderful World, which reached number 20 in the US. And Taylor's album Flag with Carole King's Up on the Roof went to number 30. Now in 1981, Dad Loves His Work. It went to number 10. The single Her Town 2 went to number 11. Carly Simon left. Taylor was on methadone program. The divorce was finalized in '83. That fall, when his friends John Belushi and Dennis Wilson died, he kicked. He wanted to survive in order to be a good father to Sally and Ben, his children, with Carly. A successful trip to Brazil to play a festival to 300,000 appreciative fans helped Taylor to get through his unhappiness about his divorce. That's Why I'm Here, with guest spots by Joni Mitchell and Don Henley, showed more originals and less covers. In '88, Never Die Young, and then in '91, New Moonshine were moderately successful. And then in '97, after a 6-year layoff, Taylor released Hourglass, which was a critical success. Tracks Jump Up Behind Me paid tribute to his father's rescue and the long drive home from New York City so long ago. Enough to Be On Your Way was inspired by his brother Alex, who died of alcohol abuse. It included a duet with Mark Knopfler, Sailing to Philadelphia. Taylor also teamed with Alison Krauss in a tribute to Paul Simon. And then in 2007, with Carole King, Taylor headlined 6 shows at the Troubadour, a 50th anniversary show for the venue. Taylor Swift was named after James Taylor. You heard it first here? Oh, perhaps not. Sorry. Swift appeared with James at Tanglewood in 2013, and then in 2015, Before This World went to number 1 45 years after Sweet Baby James. That's my show. James Taylor's an incredible talent, certainly troubled along the way. I'm very happy to say that he's still with us and he's still doing his thing. Thanks, James. Thank you for surviving. See you all next time on How to Save Rock. Take good care, everyone.